Hey there, Georgie here with Ukraine Matters. Me now recording daily videos for you means that you will see me in those days that you would not see me otherwise. So including when I'm traveling or when I'm doing some completely different things. So let's try to get to this new type of recordings with this car format for today. And we start by talking about the Russian war crimes. Except this time it's not anyone else but the Russians themselves that are exposing their own war crimes. Russian propagandists have released the movie that is called At the Edge of the Abyss, which discusses and shows the videos of their invasion into Ukraine and their fight for the city of Mariupol from the Russian side. Besides the whole invasion into Ukraine being an absolutely aggressive warfare, it also shows certain footage that absolutely clearly for everyone demonstrates that Russia was committing and actually is still committing war crimes. Denis Kazansky, Ukrainian blogger, has pointed out that in the movie itself, they're showing, for example, Russians firing at the car that is driving inside of Mariupol, carrying elderly Ukrainians and children. Then in other shots, there is a Russian tank that is firing directly at the civilian buildings for the purpose of destroying them completely without even any remote consideration whether or not there are civilians in the building altogether. All of this is a war crime fiesta, and Russia needs to be tried for this. This is not the world that we need to be living in, and Russia needs to answer for every single life they have taken. And my hope is that they will, and we're going to be doing everything that we can to make that happen. But the main story tonight is the Russian problem with fuel. I know you might be wondering, what Russia fuel? What is happening? Well, I'm pretty sure you've heard about the Ukrainian drones striking some of the Russian oil refining facilities. Well, it has consequences. Russians right now are driving into nights so they can try to queue up for the gas station to get themselves some fuel. The lines to get the fuel are stretching for kilometers, and it has been a widespread problem right now in Russia already. It is not total yet, but it has covered some of the major regions of Russia, and more importantly, it seems that it is spreading. The problem started in Far East, Siberia, and also in the south of Russia and in the Russian-occupied territories, specifically Crimea. And in Crimea specifically, they've even introduced something that Russia only known in the 90s, which is the fuel stamps. So now in Crimea, Russians are able to get the fuel only by having the dedicated stamp cards to get that fuel. They cannot just buy it themselves. But the prices of fuel are not staying still, and they are rising every day, and this is going to cause major issues for Russia. Because government does try to do something about the rising oil prices. They're calling on everyone, and they're trying to essentially order the prices not to raise. They are trying to freeze the price levels. Plus, they introduced a total ban on exporting of Russian fuel towards any kind of export destination. There was some prohibition beforehand on the smaller producers, but now even the biggest companies that do oil refining and producing gasoline, they are now also banned to export that fuel. And most comical is that right now there's excuses that are being made about what is happening with Russian fuel, and the excuses are that summer is just a hot season. There is a lot of people going out for vacation. There is a little bit more consumption. People are starting to buy more fuel in general. They're trying to fill up their own tanks. And they are basically stating that it's people that are consuming fuel are to blame for this problem. They also, like the bravest ones, they mentioned that it is because some of the Russian facilities, oil refining facilities, are now on repair, on maintenance. I wonder why. What could have happened with those oil refining facilities that Russians suddenly need to repair them? And the answer is simple. It's the Ukrainian drones bringing the war, the Russian aggression back to Russia, and Russians finally starting to experience the pain of what it means to cause a war on some other countries. It's been a huge widespread problems for the Russians already, and it seems to be only escalating from now. Now the question is whether or not it will turn to catastrophe. It is unclear, but the rises of prices for fuel will definitely be a problem for the Russian economy, because fuel is one of those weird commodities where it goes into everything. Like a pack of milk for you at the shop will have the fuel prices included in its total end price for you as a customers. For a very long time, Russian government tried to pressure the wholesalers to keep the fuel prices down, but it's not been happening anymore. The inability to do so is just too obvious. And more importantly, Ukrainian strikes are not stopping, and it's expected to continue. Ukrainian intelligence are reporting that they've already did damages that could be equal to about 4% of Russian GDP. Now, we cannot verify those numbers, but we did saw a lot of the oil refineries being struck, and Reuters estimates that it could be anywhere from 8 to 13% of the Russian fuel market that could be impacted from the Ukrainian strikes. The things are so bad for Russia, and I couldn't believe it myself, but they are proposing to import fuel. Like, just think about this. Russia, if there is one thing you can say about Russia, is that it's world's fuel pump. So the world's biggest fuel pump is thinking about importing fuel from other countries. Now, I don't know how people can explain that what Russia is doing is still fine, and their economy is fine, and they can just move on together, but it's very clearly not fine, and it's not going to be fine. But most importantly, besides just the prices, there is one important consequence that is kind of also not being talked about that much, and that is that economies built on the Russian cheap fuel are not only in European Union. So it's not only Germany or other countries that were taking the Russian cheap fuel and they were building whole businesses. Russia itself as well. A lot of Russian companies are built on the assumption that they have cheap fuel. So they have like massive logistics based on fuel trucks and everything else. And that is a huge issue for business that cannot be just linearly expected to just adapt to existing problem with the fuel. Everything is going to depend for how long this will go on, and whether or not Ukraine will continue their striking campaigns against the Russian oil refinery capacities. I sure as hell bet that it will, and this is another consequence, and great job by Ukrainians to start bringing the consequences of war back to Russia. In some other news, Ukrainians have shown a new drones. The Defender Dynamics has displayed the new type of drone that has been now tested for Ukrainians. They have a whole series of these drones. They range from 7 to 11 inches. And that drone has certain number of automatic firing barrels that use the 12 gauge caliber. And that drone has sensors installed that when the target is acquired, it can automatically navigate itself to the target, and it can align itself automatically to make sure that when that installed firing mechanisms is fired, then the target is struck. So now Ukrainians are having this development. Most likely it's going to be primarily used to fight other drones. In that case, it's a cost-effective, multi-use automated system. Great development by Ukrainians, and I will be definitely monitoring how they will be performing on the front lines. From another great news, there is another group of children that has now been returned to Ukraine. This is a group of children ranging from 11 to 17 years old that were abducted from Kherson during the Russian occupation. Thanks to the Ukrainian efforts, they have been now returned, despite the fact that they've had to encounter the searches, interrogations from the Russians. humiliations, and psychological pressure. It is good to hear that more and more children are being returned. And remember, Russia is committing war crimes every day, and all of them are terrible, and abducting of children is one of them. Russia has abducted over 19,500 children just from this full-scale invasion itself. And to finish on some great news, I want to say thanks to Austria that now assigned additional 2 million euros in humanitarian aid to Ukraine. Austria is not one of those countries that is fully aligned with Ukraine, but it is still great to see that help somewhere is coming, because this help is fantastic and it will truly ease up some of the people's lives that are suffering from this awful, unprovoked war. Thank you so much for watching this video. Trust in Ukrainian armed forces, support the Ukrainian armed forces. I love you. Slava Ukraini, and I will see you already in studio next time.